Alright, so something crazy just happened in Arena. We were promised more timeless content from the WOTC devs, saying there's more to come this year. Well, here it is. A little bit too early, I would say. We're gonna be getting these cards next week, September 23rd, when Through the Omen Pass releases on September 23rd. To celebrate, some of these cards in Arena Anthologies are going to be available for crafting right now. These bundles, along with the related card styles, will be available starting September 23rd, which is very exciting news. The problem right now, though, is that currently they are craftable, but nowhere does it say that they can be played at the moment. All it says is that it will be available starting 23rd. That is the only thing that states in this article. However, currently, not only are they craftable, but they're also playable in timeless format. Now, that is a little bit frustrating because usually with these kind of anthologies, you want to be able to buy these anthologies instead of crafting them because usually they are pretty good value for money. As for the cards, I'm only going to be going over Anthology 3 because the Anthology 4, they're not very good in my opinion. So this is all the cards that are going to be coming out in Anthology 4. You can take a look if you want, but it's not really something that you're going to have to worry about playing these in timeless format or even historic. And I'm only going to be talking about cards that might make an impact. So starting with Staff of the Storyteller, at first I thought this was a commander card, but apparently this is actually a pretty decent card that saw a little bit of play in Legacy, in like a very, very hard control deck that wants to, poop out some tokens here and there. I want to say very powerful, but extremely slow for something like Timeless. Flicker Wisp, currently at the moment, there's not really like a Blink deck per se. This might actually make the cut. So something like Blink actually pretty viable. You would play something like this in something like Orjob because you can bounce Overlord the Belmerk because it says exile another permanent. So along with the Dollmaker and the Flicker Wisp, so now you have 8 different ways of actually bouncing the Belmerk, which might push the Orjob archetype into some sort of these like a Death and Tax style deck. So we'll see. And at the same time, this can bounce opponents' permanents as well. So it's a very powerful card. And if you actually pair this up with something like a Dollmaker, you can Dollmaker your opponent's creature and then Flicker Wisp opponent's creature. And that's actually going to get rid of their creatures as well, since the Dollmaker makes it a token. Force Spike, we've seen this card as a white mana card in Arena, Mana Tide, counter target spell, unless its controller pays 1 mana. Peak, 1 mana, look at target player's hand, and then draw a card. It's a pretty interesting card, but not really sure if you're gonna see something like this, since Ponder is also on the table now with the next set. Miscalculation, 2 mana, counter target spell, unless its controller pays 2, cycling 2. Shelldock Isle, Hideaway 4, this land enters tapped. You may play the card, exile with the Hideaway 4 without paying its mana cost if the library has 20 or fewer cards in it. Interesting card. The Ruthie Void Walker. Now, this is a card that all the mono black decks are going to play. Incredibly powerful card. If a card would be put into opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with the Void counter on it. And then you can sacrifice this card, choose an exiled card an opponent owns with the Void counter, and then you may play it without paying its mana cost. Well, this is a very, very powerful card, isn't it? A built-in Leyline of the Void, which is also not symmetrical, so you're only affecting your opponent. And then later on, you can play the card that you exiled by sacrificing this creature. Extremely, extremely powerful card that is being seen play even in Legacy. What's very nice about this card in the current metagame is everybody is trying to get back a card from the graveyard, which is the Weary Zone Guard. So I would think this card is going to be played a lot in mono black because you can go something like Dark Ritual, play this card, Thoughtseize, and then exile that card with the Void counter on it. And the following turn, you can sacrifice this card to play that card that you exiled. It is a very, very powerful card. Next up, Necromancy. This is a 3 mana enchantment. This is basically kind of like Reanimate, but you could potentially play this at an instant speed spell. But if you use it as an instant speed card, you have to sacrifice this card at the end of the turn. and if the creature doesn't have necromancy anymore on the battlefield, you also have to sacrifice that creature. So it is a pretty interesting card, but we have reanimate, so you're not really going to be seeing something like this. But it's definitely an interesting card nonetheless. Like maybe like a French deck might play it. Assault Strobe. Target creature gains double strike until the end of the turn. Chain Lightning. So this is actually going to be the first burn spell in historic format that lets you target any place you want. And currently, there's only 2 cards that are pre-banned for historic, which is going to be the Broadside Bombardier and then Gut True Soul Zealot. So Chain Lightning is going to be illegal in historic, which is pretty nice, honestly. Historic has kind of been missing that, 3 damage spell that, kind of goes anywhere except for the Wizard's Lightning. But I guess the fact that this is a sorcery spell instead of an instant speed spell, they're allowing something like this in the historic format. Obviously much worse than something like Lightning Bolt, so it does make sense. Broadside Bombardier. Oh man. So this is one of the things that I've been complaining about with mono red, just not having a good 3-drop. Probably the best 3-drop you can ask for. It has menace, it has haste, it has an insane ability that lets you sacrifice another creature or an artifact, and it can deal damage equal to 2+ the sacrifice permanent's mana value to any target. So what's really insane about this card is it's not even a sorcery, and not only that, you don't even have to connect with opponent's face. So if opponent has just a bunch of creatures, well, you can just play something like a Pyrogoyf, deal 5 damage to opponent's face, attack with this card, sacrifice a Pyrogoyf, deal 6 more damage to opponent's face. Another thing that's really cool about this card is the fact that it can sacrifice the One Ring. A lot of the times, this deck does end up killing themselves with the One Ring, but now you can potentially just sacrifice your One Ring after you've drawn enough cards. I think that's also really sweet as well. Better yet, if opponent, does end up drawing a flute, you can sacrifice your One Ring as well. It's just a really good sync for a lot of the useless artifacts that you may draw in the future, like Chrome Moxes, Chalice of the Void. It's just insane. This card is insane. Into another 3-mana card, we have Gut True Soul Zealot. Whenever you attack, you may sacrifice another creature or an artifact. If you do, create a 4/1 black skeleton token with mana stats tapped and attacking. Then you can choose a background. Obviously not as good as Bombardier, I would say. Oxida, Scrap Melter. When this card enters, destroy target artifact. Crop Rotation. Wow. So this is an insane card that lets you just sacrifice a land to tutor for a land onto the battlefield. And it doesn't even come tapped, which is something else. It is a card disadvantage, but if your deck is already able to play multiple lands per turn, and you're kind of a deck that just can put a lot of lands onto the battlefield without having to really feel this card disadvantage, it can become an insane card. Like, for example, Arboreal Grazer, put another card down, Flare of Cultivation, more lands onto the battlefield. Then you can crop rotation one of your lands, and then you can grab something like, if you really want to, Strip Mine, things like that. Currently, there's not too many lands that are very impactful other than Strip Mine and Field Dead, but this is an insane card nonetheless in the Timeless format. Who knows? Maybe there is a deck with, crop rotation, with the Worry Zone Guard, with the Titans. It's a proven fact now that Strip Mine Loop is powerful enough to actually stop a lot of the combo decks going around, especially if you pair it up with other discard spells. So we'll see. Next up, we got Exploration. Wow, back-to-back banger. 1-mana enchantment, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. Remember when I said if your deck can play multiple lands per turn? Well, here it is. If you can play multiple lands per turn, things can get a little bit crazy. This could be an insane card in Gates. And I kid you not, Gates is, if you've never played Historic before, Gates is actually kind of deadly in Historic format. Not to the point where it's like a tiered deck or anything, but it is good enough to win in Historic. Definitely another card to keep an eye on, since there could be a deck with these 2 cards together. Next up, we got Noble Hierarch. Last Anthology, we got Ignoble Hierarch. Now we get the other side of that. I'm not really too crazy about it, but it is a card. It's pretty decent, especially in Historic. Ambush Viper, kind of cute. Fallen Shinobi. I feel like a lot of the ninjas that do have this kind of a ninjutsu cost or are like 4-mana ninjas kind of already have this already, that I'm not really sure if something like this will ever see play. It is an incredibly powerful effect though, being able to play 2 cards without paying any mana cost. And then now we have Umezawa's Jite. Wow. Pretty powerful card, especially as a one-of. You would want to play something like this in something like a Stoneforge Mystic deck, because it's just a really, really nice card that get rid of a lot of energy decks creatures. You have to deal combat damage though, but if you're going to be playing something like this, you would play this in another deck that would have a bunch of flyers. Like, for example, a Flicker Wisp. So if you can actually hit your opponent with the GT once, I think that would make energy decks very miserable, because you can remove a charge counter from this card to, you know, get rid of those creatures. And since it, you know, gives you 2 charges, it's pretty good. And then we have the Batter Skull, a 5-mana living weapon that has Vigilance and Lifelink. You can also return this card to its owner's hand. So with the Stoneforge Mystic, if somehow the Batter Skull creature dies, you can, you know, return it and then play again to make another creature out of it. But I'm not really sure if they play the Batter Skull anymore in older format, but it's definitely a powerful card. And then now we have Memory Jar. I don't think this is a card that people play. I'm not really entirely sure. Sacrifice this card. Each player exiles all cards from their hand face down. Draw 7. At the beginning of the next end step, each player discards their hand and returns to their hand each card they exile this way. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Oh my god. Wait a minute. Wait, we get all those Stoneforge Mystic cards in a single anthology? I thought, like, when I saw Batter Skull and GT, I actually didn't expect this card to show up. So yeah, this card is pretty nice. Living Weapon, Indestructible. Equipped creature gets +5/+5 and has First Strike, Trample, Indestructible, Haste. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature. So it's a little bit more powerful Death Touch effect. Considering that this is indestructible, it's kind of nice. Okay, so I don't know what happens if this card attacks through a cat token if there's an Ajani. Does the Ajani transform? I'm gonna assume it doesn't. And if so, it's pretty nice. This is definitely a card that was missing from Stoneforge Mystic. Yeah, there could be like a Death and Taxes style deck with the Stoneforge Mystic. Now that we have a Cauldron Complete, GT, and a Flicker Wisp, that is pretty sick, isn't it? Next up, we got the Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre. When the Ulamog is put into the graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their library into their deck. So this is pretty nice if mill becomes a thing, I guess. You would just have this in the sideboard as a way to prevent mill. It's definitely not bad, because like even if you draw it, you can just discard it. Like if you have like a discard effect, you can just discard it and then just put it back into your deck again, you know, things like that. Oh, we're also getting the Emrakul as well. Wow, I mean, this is actually the card that was kind of missing from a sneak attack deck, isn't it? It can't be countered whenever you cast a spell, take an extra turn. It has flying protection from spells that are 1 or more colors, and it has Annihilator 6. So now the deck doesn't even have to play some like random cards like, you know, the other Ulamog, and you don't even have to play things like Ugin's Lab, and you also don't have to rely on something like Gafar's Gift. Like, this is insane. Wow. We're just getting this, huh? If you like sneak attack, you're gonna love this card. Next up, oh wow, we're even getting Yavimaya. Each land is a forest in addition to its other land types. Well, that's really nice. So honestly, overall, insane anthology. Mono black is going to be a thing. Death and Taxes might be a thing. Mono red is most definitely going to be a thing. A land deck could be a thing with crop rotation, exploration, and Yavimaya. And GT Batter Skull plus Cauldron. Stoneforge Mystic could be a thing. And finally, Sneak Attack could be a thing as well. What an anthology this is. So to wrap things up, do think this anthology is pretty great. If you can afford to wait, it is going to be very valuable just by buying the anthology, in my opinion. So for example, we have Rare here, Rare there, Bombardier, and you also want 4 copies of Exploration as well. So that's 4 copies. Maybe if you play Historic, You might want Noble Hierarch, that's 5. Jite, Batterskull, Cauldron Complete, and Yabi Maya. You probably want one of each, so that's 6. And then you probably want 3 or 4 copies of Emrakul the Eon's Torn, because it is going to be a sneak attack deck, right? You want 3 to 4 copies for redundancy. That's like 7. So 7 times 4. So you're looking at like 28 wild cards that you save if you just wait a little bit and buy the Anthology. Now, obviously, this could just be a mistake. Like I said, the fact that you can play with these cards might be an error on their part. In the announcement page, nowhere does it state that you can play with these cards until September 23rd. I think there might be an error on Wizards' end, but let's say tomorrow comes and these cards are still playable. I might craft them and then showcase some decks. I'm a little bit torn on what to do here, since they kind of messed up pretty hard here. I'm almost sure that this isn't supposed to happen because, you know, they want to sell the bundle 23rd as stated in the announcement, but the fact that you can craft them and play with them right now, I'm almost sure that it's a mistake because they've done this before. They made the same mistake with the special guest set where people could craft the special guest set that hasn't come out yet and play with them. And later on, Wizard of the Coast had to, you know, take it down and then you weren't able to play with them anymore. So yeah, that is going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye-bye.